appreciated. Today, I'm just going to go over one of the flaws of having option yield ETFs. I'm personally myself am not going all in, although at least not yet. I think these high yield option based ETFs are great, but right now there's one big problem. You can't use them as collateral yet. For example, Yieldmax, Defiance, option based, and other option based ETFs like NEOS. I think in general, they're fantastic products, especially for younger or beginning investors because they have such high yield. But in the future, this might be a small issue, assuming that things go the same as they are now. It's usually once you get to like a certain size in your portfolio, you might want to start borrowing against your yield-based collateral because it's usually cheaper than selling them and then paying tax on them later. Like for example, let's say you have a leaky roof, but you don't have a lot of cash available yet. Um, what you could sometimes do as an option, and of course you don't have to do this, you can borrow against if your interest and dividend paying securities. Of course, there's going to be a cost to this, but it is something that you want to think about in the future, especially when once your portfolio starts getting bigger. And it's not that hard, especially since like a lot of these yield max and Defiance ETFs are, they have such high payout rates. But let's hope for the best. I just want to show you an example. For example, if you have uh, a, the SNSXX uh, Treasury money market fund, you can borrow up to 96% of against your portfolio. And let's say you also have the TLT ETF, you can borrow 70%, up to 70% of like the value of TLT. And one of the exceptions that I found for a yield-based, high yield-based ETFs is TLTW. So far, this is the only one that I found that you can borrow 70% against. But if you notice, like instead of like a standard advance rate, this has special maintenance. So that means it's probably subject to change. And then if there's something going on with TLTW, if, for example, if there's a sharp drop, you probably won't be able to borrow as much against, and you'll probably have to repay sooner rather than later. So it is something to keep an eye on. And just to show you an example, the regular Coinbase stock, you can only borrow 50%. And again, it's also under special maintenance because it's such a volatile stock that Schwab probably doesn't consider it to be very high quality. So higher quality stocks, usually if there's a lot of liquidity or if it's known for being like a more stable dividend paying stock, you can borrow more. And I think for most stocks it's usually around 70%. Treasuries are usually like the benchmark. Um, you can borrow 90% or more against like any treasury portfolio most of the time. I guess like ETFs are considered special case because they are subject to more volatility. So I think that's why they only allow 70% borrowing against TLT. And then if you notice, like all for most of the major yield based high yield based ETFs, option based ETFs, for example, Coney, NVDY, Tesla, SPYI, and the new triple QY. So far, these are not eligible for to borrow against. But of course, this could change in the future. I'm hoping that uh, these ETFs and other ones that'll come afterwards, that they'll be more liquid, and then they'll be more consistent in their dividend payouts. So then that in the future, once you have a pretty nice sized portfolio and you don't want to sell off your any of these holdings, you can just borrow against it, do what you have to do, and then repay it back. And it's cheaper than like paying like a like a capital gains tax. Um, so I think overall, these are still pretty good products. They're relatively easy to use. It's still a good source of yield. But I think for right now, I'm still going to keep my other income-based investments, just like, for example, treasuries, dividend-paying stocks, uh, my normal option-based strategies, just so that in the future, if I have some emergency, I can borrow against my holdings. But of course, like, this is not financial advice. This is just something that I want to point out to you guys. And of course, like, these are just the normal risk of these high yield option based ETFs. Like the expense ratios are fairly high, usually around 1% or 99 basis points or so. And then of course you don't have control over any of your option strikes selections. In the future, implied volatility could collapse, so then that could really cause a drop in your yield. And they might not be available at all brokerages, just because like they're still not that liquid yet, and the yields, of course, are not consistent month to month. And then, of course, like what I pointed out earlier, that you can't borrow against them, or at least not yet. So I'm hoping things will improve in the future. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. And please, if you can like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated.